Cynthia,
Yes.
please, there are people who are moderating or speaking and those things. You can start admitting those people and then
Oh no, it's already just 10 minutes, so we'll admit all of them. Yeah.
well, the
Yeah.
interpreters haven't joined yet.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay.
right.
All right. I get you. I get you. All right.
Cynthia,
Yes.
please, the team members who you've assigned roles to, I don't see any of them joining. No. And the interpreters, so can you alert them?
Yeah, I'm alerting the interpreters. All right. I'll call the rest too.
Yeah, Dr. Kennedy, you are welcome. Now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Dr. Tumenta, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. I'm testing another equipment to see if this one can take me better.
Cynthia, can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Strengthening democracy and governance in West Africa, the past, the present, and the future. My name is Cynthia Afijujo, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. Please, I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
Admin, can you give a signal?
I can hear you, Cynthia.
All right, thank you. So as I was saying, I'll be your moderator for today's event. The event would start with opening remarks from Parliamentary Network Africa and the Wademos team. But before we start, I'd like to indicate that we have pre-event questionnaire that will be posted in the chat box. So kindly take a minute of your time to click on it and then share your perspectives with us even before we start this discussion. Would give other colleagues just a minute for them to join us. So we'll give them just 1 minute to see if they can join us. Thank you. Ok, donc on continue. Je m'appelle Cynthia et je serai votre modératrice pour cette webinaire. Veuillez noter que l'interprétation est disponible en français et portugais. Donc, choisissez votre langue préférée en bas de l'écran. Please note that we have simultaneous interpretation in French and Portuguese. So select your preferred language at the bottom of the screen. We'll start this discussion with opening remarks from our programs manager in the person of Mr. Gilbert Bokete Boyfield. So Gilbert, please, you have the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. And I want to say welcome to all our participants, and a special privilege to have the dignitaries that we have scheduled to speak for today's event. We are very, very, very grateful to have them with us. At the appropriate time, they will be introduced to the audience. But this webinar is the second in the series that we started to organize to celebrate ECOWAS at 50. And in today's webinar, we are going to deliberate on the journey so far, the past, the present, and the future. And then it is my hope that at the end of today's webinar, we are going to together come up with ideas and suggestions that will help to shape the ECOWAS into the regional bloc that we all want and we all aspire to be part of. So on behalf of Parliamentary Network Africa and also our partners from Wadimos, I welcome you all to today's event. Over to you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Gilbert, for that brief opening remarks. We'll now take the opening remarks from Ms. Josanka. Please pardon me if I pronounce the name wrongly. She is the coordinator of Wademos, and she'll be giving us the opening remarks from Wademos. Thank you. Admin, can you give her the rights to unmute her audio? Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Miss Josan. Please, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear.
Okay. I'm not also able to put my video on.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay. So let me start. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cynthia. My name is Marie-Josiane Nga, and I'm speaking here on behalf of the West Africa. Okay. All right, so I'm speaking here on behalf of the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network. So dear colleagues, dear partners, dear participants, good afternoon once more. And warm greeting from the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network. So it's always a privilege to stand by PNA to deliver this opening remark on behalf of Wademos as we gather here today. So we first of all want to commend the Parliamentary Network Africa and all partners under the Bridge Project for convening this dialogue on democracy and governance in our region. So as we know, ECOWAS has stood as both a beacon of hope and a symbol of that complex journey toward regional cooperation, from the founding vision of peace and economic unity to bold engagement in the restoration of constitutional order in moments of democratic rupture. ECOWAS has played a crucial role. Yet the democratic aspirations of our citizens remain a work in progress. So Wademos was born out of that urgency to connect civic voices across the sub-region, to defend democratic norms and to push back against the tide of democratic backsliding that we have seen in recent years. So we still face some challenges today, 50 years later, repeated unconstitutional changes of government, growing mistrust between citizens and state institutions, shrinking civic space, and attacks on human rights defenders, and also that ongoing debate on the relevance and responsiveness of regional bodies like ECOWAS. So I think such a moment for us is a moment of opportunity. Citizens, especially the youth, are not waiting on the sidelines. They are creating platforms, mobilizing communities, and demanding accountability. Civil society, media, parliamentary actors are building bridges, fostering dialogues, and defending democratic gains. So our task here is very clear. We have to protect what has been achieved and to confront what remains broken, and also to collectively shape a future that is more just, inclusive, and democratic. So as we begin this important conversation today, I urge us not to speak only in the language of institutions and frameworks, but also in the language of citizenship, solidarity, and shared responsibility. So Wademos remain committed to work alongside ECOWAS, parliaments, CSOs, and citizens to co-create that future where democracy is not just about elections and declarations, but about living experience of dignity, voice, and justice across West Africa. So thank you once again to PNA Africa and the organizers. I wish on behalf of the entire Wademos network, I wish us all a productive and inspiring discussion. Thank you very much. Over, Cynthia.
Thank you very much, Miss Marie-Josiane Nga. I hope I got it right this time. Thank you for those brief remarks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to the next item on our agenda. And with this would be taking perspectives from our speakers on the theme. So we'll give our speakers each about 5 minutes to give us their perspectives on the theme. And then afterwards, we'll ask them specific questions, each also on the theme. So we'll start, first of all, with Dr. Ifwa Yakohene. She is a lecturer at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, University of Ghana. She's a regional integration and international relations analyst, and she's also affiliated with several policy networks and regularly advises on ECOWAS-related reforms. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly help me welcome Dr. Yakohini, who was also once my lecturer. Thank you so much for making it a point to join this discussion. I know it has been, you are a very busy person, but you took time to join this discussion. We are very honored to have you here. We would first of all want to know your perspectives on the theme. So if you can please share with us your general perspectives on this theme.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And Madam Chair, my privilege to have you host me and members of the ECOWAS Parliament who are present here, key stakeholders and partners, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here, and particularly to see a student of mine shining. My perspective, my perspectives are many. ECOWAS under 50, commemoration under the Building Regional Integration through dialogue and governance engagement. And first and foremost, I would say congratulations to ECOWAS for having lived this long. 50 years is no joke. If you take a good look at ECOWAS's involvement as an organization that had its focus on more of regional integration, economic development, and it has evolved into an organization that has gone beyond that mandate in order to, it has consistently be awoke to the issues happening in the sub-region, and now it's fostering not only economic cooperation, but democracy and stability among its members. I would say kudos to ECOWAS. And again, on the theme, governance. Let me start by saying that the theme for me brings out again the relevance of ECOWAS, because if you come from the perspective of international relations theory, that gives more impetus to liberalism. That says that, look, liberals do not necessarily, they don't have a problem with the realists who say that, okay, states are the rational actors and they are the dominant actors. But there are also other actors on the in the international system whose role is important. And then that would then make reference to ECOWAS, that it has been a consistent and relevant organization through its norms, through its policies, through its strategies that has helped in shaping the democracies of West African states, that has helped in bringing about stability. And it goes beyond just shaping it into direct interventions where need be. You can scale your mind back to the role that ECOMOG played in bringing about peace and stability in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, the role that ECOWAS has played in bringing about peace and security in the Gambia, in Mali, and its current stance with, of course, the alliance of Sahel states, which we hope will be resolved. So for me, its role can never be undermined. So it must continue to pursue, to use its platform to push for good governance and democracy, and in order also to forestall the democratic recession or democratic reversals that we do see happening in the sub-region. Let me rest for now and wait for the other questions.
All right, thank you. Before we move on to the other questions, we'll move on to Dr. Tumenta F. Kennedy, who will give us the diasporan perspective on this subject matter. Doc, if you are there with us, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you see me? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the wonderful event. I want to thank our partner, the Parliamentary Network, for the great job that they are doing. Thanks to the President and Prof. Thank you very much for that wonderful introductions. I want to salute Josiane for the beautiful keynote she gave. But I'm speaking on behalf of the African Diaspora Development Agency from the African Diaspora 6 region. And, ECOWAS has played a vital role in the development and institutional changes of the African Union. Just to go back, in 2003, members of the ECOWAS actually pioneered Article 3 cure of the Constitutive Act of the African Union. Article 3 cure amended says that countries should invite and integrate the African diasporas into the activities of the continent and subsequently making them to become the 6th region. So being the commissioner of the African Diaspora 6 regions, we are so happy that the parliamentary network is doing great jobs and making sure that we could discuss on what actually matters. And the diaspora itself really plays a vital role. So if we look at the milestones on the topics we are discussing, we are very happy that ECOWAS itself has played vital role significantly. 2002, Ghana 2020, in 2000, us from the diasporas watching 2000, 2008, and 2016 peace transition in Senegal 2012, and again in 2024, Liberia, of course, 2017. So we have seen that ECOWAS has played a vital role, and it means a lot for the diasporas, which are both national people, diasporas and historical diasporas, because Article 3 cure says that people of African origin currently living out of the continent, independent of their current nationality, but who are willing to contribute to the development of an integrated Africa and its diaspora. So we from the diasporas are really happy. Ghana has played a vital role during the last years to create the year of return. We also saw ECOWAS interventions of course, in the 90s in Liberia, which was very important because some of the diasporas today left these countries and went out. We saw in Sierra Leone in the 2000s, which reduced, let's say, conflicts dead by 70% from the statistic which we had, and also enabled post-war election. So we also look at not just on the governance, but the free movement protocols that the ECOWAS introduced that boosted intra-regional migration. And today, as we travel around Africa, everybody says ECOWAS is the one to see, is the examples to pick up, which has enabled migration with more than 12.2 million West Africans living in another member state country by 2023. So we believe that if we look at the things that ECOWAS has done in the past, we believe that it is is really good for us. And as we go towards the African continental free trade, which is partly built on regional corporations, we as the diasporas are asking for more. We will be exchanging during this meeting to let the parliamentarians understand that today we have a new dynamic, and the dynamic is like multilateral institutions are in crisis. But ECOWAS has proven that people-centered relationship, meaning that using a multilateralism that is not based on state, but it's based on people, will be the changing dynamic. Just imagine ECOWAS continues to open, not just for member states, but also opens to the historical diasporas, then we will be able to attract the approximately 400 million African diasporas, with majority in Latin America, South America, Brazil, because many people do not know that the majority of diasporas live actually in Brazil, which has approximately 200 million of people of African descent. So I believe that as we drive this conversation and looking at the past positive part, knowing that there are some challenges that are there today, the diasporas in the future will will bring in meaningful resources, financial, infrastructure, technical, and cultural relationship that will expand outreach. I believe that the ECOWAS as an institution has done a lot. There are crises that has to be overcome, but we believe that we have all the instruments that we will debate and exchange during this contribution to support. Thank you very much, Cynthia.
Thank you so very much, Doc. Kindly note that Dr. Kennedy is a governance, security, and diaspora policy expert, serving as commissioner at Commission of African Diaspora Development Agency, or African Diaspora Development Agency, ADA for short. And he also works and connects other diaspora communities to policy frameworks across the African continent. Thank you so much, Doc. From
Thank
our
you very much, Cynthia.
our
Thank
two speakers, the keynotes or the key takeaway is that ECOWAS has played a vital role and cannot be downplayed. We'll move on to our next speaker, who is in the person of Mr. Please don't pardon me if I butcher the name again. Mr. Edward Kakumu. Mr. Edward Kakumu is a programs coordinator at Mzalendo Trust, Kenya. And he's also going to bring on board his perspectives from the East African perspective from this discussion. So Edward, can you please give us your valuable comparative analysis from East Africa, and then let's see how the discussion also goes. Thank you. You have the floor. Our IT personnel, can you please give him the permission to unmute his mic?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please. We can hear you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Cynthia, the PNA Africa Group, and all the organizers of this event. My name is Edward Kakumu, a programs coordinator with Mzalendo Trust. Mzalendo Trust is a parliamentary monitoring organization in East Africa. And we are based in Nairobi, Kenya. So receive greetings from this side of the Indian Ocean hemisphere. I want to laud the efforts of the previous speakers, speaking around, democracy and governance being very core principles in making sure that regional integration prospers. And democracy and governance is actually of utmost interest, for Mzalendo Trust. And allow me to also, at this point, congratulate ECOWAS. Today is a monumental day, and we see that you guys are enjoying your 50 years of regional integration. For me, this is also a learning experience, just to listen to you and understand what is going on in that particular side of the hemisphere, where closer to the Atlantic and closer to the Americas. It will be nice. I'm looking forward to the interaction and just to sharing ideas around, what is happening in East Africa and how our regional integration is going on. I'm at pains to begin the conversation, but for me, regional integration is very key in terms of amplifying shared values, policies, and cultures beyond, borders. Some of our countries and some of our communities are very, they are the same, with the same culture, with the same traditions, the same people. And I like, how the previous speakers have spoken about, people-centered approaches. And for me, regional integration at its heart is all about ensuring each and every human being is able to travel freely, trade freely, and just interact, socially interact freely. Allow me to pause at this point and await the questions, but I have more to share as we move forward.
All
Allow
right.
me also not to share the video. My gadget at the moment is not in the best of qualities.
That's understandable. Thank you so much for sharing your insightful perspectives. Yes, the discussion has just started, so we know that you have a lot to share with us. So we'll now dive into the particular questions. I would like to hear your perspectives, all of you, on certain various topics, and also from the angle you're bringing on board. So we'll start with Dr. Yakohene, who is from academia or who is representing academia on this platform, would want to know from her angle what democratic milestones over the past 50 years stand out in West Africa and why this.
Thank you, Cynthia. Or rather, sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. So,
Thank you, Cynthia. It's fine.
Before the 2001 promulgation of the ECOWAS protocol on democracy and good governance, you can see that right before the end of the Cold War, and for many of the countries after the end of the Cold War, this will be the late 1990s, most West African countries moved away from military rule to democratic rule. Some people also moved away from one-party state rule to embracing multi-party democracy, leading to more competitive elections. And that is what has advised the democratic temperature or climate that we are enjoying in West Africa. Then, when the protocol on democracy and good governance came in, it in many ways helped in promoting constitutional governance, the holding of free and fair elections, and the promotion also of human rights across the region. And you can also see that ECOWAS focused on the development of constitutional state-based rule of law in order to strengthen the democratic processes and mechanisms. And it also adopted some norms that helped also in strengthening good governance. Then another thing that ECOWAS has also helped is in assisting in the having of peaceful power transitions. And you do recall that for many countries, there have been incumbents who have overstayed their welcome. And it's not that easy for them to hand over the baton to other countries. And how have they continued to do this? By having the ECOWAS come in as election observers, sometimes as long-term observers and usually as short-term observers, and using also the power vested in the chair of the commission and the relationship that exists between leaders to bring about consensus when it comes to handing over power. Then again, there have been a number of electoral reforms that has led to many countries now being much more open to the use of technology. You can refer to the biometric voter registration, and you can also refer to independent, well, I hope they are, independent commissions, electoral commissions that has in many veins also improved the election credibility. We can speak of judicial independence. Judicial institutions have been strengthened to enhance the rule of law and accountability. Then also ECOWAS's role in conflict resolution, in mediating conflicts across the sub-region, then and the anti-corruption efforts that we do see happening in many countries, and the creation of anti-corruption agencies to tackle challenges. And these have all been possible because of the commitment of the leaders. And not only the commitment of the, of course, we'll talk about political commitment in other, because sometimes the commitment seems to lack a bit. Then I recall also the use of sanctions, the introduction of sanctions against unconstitutional changes. It has led to mixed reactions. It hasn't resolved the conflict that came about, or the impasse that came about between ECOWAS and the Alliance of Sahel States. But you can also see that ECOWAS is steadfast in exploring digital governance initiatives that will enhance democratic governance. So for me, these are just some of the things that ECO has put in place and continues to improve on to ensure that we have good governance in the sub-region, and we also have peace in the sub-region. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. But before I let go of you, I just want you to identify some gaps that are currently existing in the ECOWAS framework that you think should be addressed.
Which of the frameworks are you referring to?
Any of the frameworks, any of the integration, the current integration framework that ECOWAS is currently implementing.
One of the things that comes to mind, and it came about as a result of a training on international judicial cooperation, is the inability of states to be compelled to comply with judicial, what's the word to use? Judicial rulings that comes from the ECOWAS court.
Okay.
That in as much as states have domesticated many of the legal frameworks or legal norms and policies of ECOWAS, but when it comes to its implementation, it can be difficult. And it can be difficult because to what extent is ECOWAS able to enforce these rulings? Because when citizens have trust in the court and they take their issues to the court for the courts to adjudicate it, and the courts finds, let's use, a state guilty or culpable, and makes a ruling that the state should pay a citizen an amount of money, and the state refuses to do that, how can the state be compelled to do it? So these are some of the things that have come up that ECOWAS will have to rely on other mechanisms to get state compliance.
All right. Thank you so very much, Dr. Yakohene. In fact, this reminds me of my school days. Yes, when I was in class with you. I mean, it just takes me back to integration class. Thank you so very much. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Mustafa Abdallah, who is a senior researcher and acting head of program Peace Support Operations at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Sir, please, I would come to you, but I would want you to relax a little whilst I go to the next speaker, who is in the person of Dr. Tumenta F. Kennedy. Doc, please, I'd want to know what best practices from global democracies can West Africa adapt to strengthen accountability in institutions?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think that Prof just, I'll just take from where Prof stopped, because if you talk about building regional organization, regional cooperation, regional structures, the ultimate aim of these regional structures is to create opportunities for people. Let me take, for example, the last thing that Prof just hinted on it, which is about trust, reliability, and control of governance systems that we put in place. Governance systems are there to check the excesses, to create a smooth pattern where people can collaborate together. And the nice thing that ECOWAS has done in the past was to take away government and national state behavior. They were checked, they were controlled, but somehow the building of trust, the final trust in the sanctioning mechanism and the enforceability mechanisms has become porous. You can check you can check elections, you can proclaim elections, you can bring pressure, but it goes beyond that. Creating the spaces is also making sure that when citizens have problems for arbitration, an organ should be able to enforce it. So that's the final milestones that we can do. If we look at what the European Union has done, the European Union was a union of interest. Today it's been pushed as, a union that is there. But one of the things is the free movement of people, of goods, of services, and interaction pattern that is being partly sanctioned by the European Court of Justice. It means if a citizen in a country is not capable of getting due process, getting being redressed to some of the excesses of state or whichever party, the citizen is free to be compensated because he knows that there is a bigger organ that supports them. So I believe that, as Prof rightly said, one has to make sure that we remove a faced human or country face to the institutional structure that we built within ECOWAS. It shouldn't be about strong people. It shouldn't be about strong country. It should be about the strong institution that should last beyond people themselves or states themselves, whether it's Nigerian, Ghana, or whichever country within the ECOWAS, whether it's Cape Verde and so on. And that is why I think that as we move ahead, the civil society as well as our brothers and sisters, parliamentarians that are all within these conversations, we should be able to leave a legacy which is building those institutions that checks human excesses and state excesses, and that is that is one of the things that we have seen within the European Union. The second thing is about building common agenda. I think the last few years, as Prof rightly said, from her research point of view, we have focused a lot on making sure that the governance structures within the ECOWAS is at least successful. Elections, checking up coup d'etats and so on. We succeeded, but there was a little bit error that they made. Economic exchanges, building sustainable economic exchanges, because economic and human exchanges is based on trust. And so by for trust and human exchanges to go ahead, this trust building mechanism has to be translated into opportunities. And I believe that while cross-border trade and inter-regional trade has increased in the last year, but for young people to find opportunities in any country and build partnership and go across border to build sustainable businesses and programs, it is very, very difficult. And that is why we have to step away from the governance-driven ideology of the past 50 years into an economic, vibrant ECOWAS that attracts children and people all around. For this one, I think that what we have seen in the European Union, they have something which is called the subsidiarity principle. Subsidiarity principle is based on two economic foundations, governance and economic foundation, that move today side by side. It means that before, a comparative advantage was what drive countries. What do we have that they don't have that we can bring together? How is Ghana position, Nigeria position, Sierra Leone position, Cape Verde position? But now we have to move to what is called collective advantage. What can we do together? How can we help those countries that are not benefiting? If you look at, that's my own personal perspective, not from my organization. I believe that if you look at some of the feeling, some of the
Hello,
nuance that.
is it from my end? Can you all hear Doc?
Can you hear me?
IT?
Yes, we can hear. You can hear, Doc.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, so I think what I wanted to say is that what is happening within, the so-called challenging states of the ECOWAS, you can call them, I call them challenging states, is because some of them or young people might have felt, if I look at Ghana, it's going up. If I look at Sierra Leone, if I look at Nigeria, they are going up. Where is our space? So people were not feeling that the economic dispensation is going to them. But that doesn't mean that it's only sent to the government. ECOWAS should have come out with a collective advantage, meaning that how do we come out with the subsidiarity principle? Those states that are not capable of moving by themselves, how do we inject resources, knowledge, competencies, and issues into these states so that they can also develop, and so that citizens in these states can have the advantage? I think that looking at what is happening, what happened in the last year in other regional corporations, if you look at what is happening in the US also, North America, treaties and whatever they have, is because the US might have felt somehow that citizens of other countries are having jobs and they are not having jobs, and so you can easily manipulate population. So I believe that a paradigm shift from comparative advantage to collective advantage. How do we explain to Ghanaians that it is in their enlightened self-interest that anything that happened in Cape Verde influence their future cooperation? How do we tell them that in Senegal, what happens in any Senegal affects Ghanaians, and so on and so forth? So once countries start creating sub-regional value chain, creating opportunities for everybody, then it becomes a people-driven and not institution and not country or men-driven institutional pattern. I think looking at what is happening in Europe, you see what they are doing for Ukraine. Support. The European Union is doing everything for Romania and other past European Union. They make sure that educational exchange programs are put there, university exchange program, civil society exchange program. They support each and every countries in this area so that they can almost move towards the same level, so that the gap between the best countries in terms of job creations, per capita GDP, and those at the bottom is not too high. So I think that they have done a lot, but we need to move from a political and institutional driven ideology to people, economic, and more integrated social and economic integrated pathway.
Thank you so much, Doc. My key takeaway is that we need to build sustainable economic exchanges, and we need to move towards a people-driven economic exchanges.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for your inputs. I would like to take the views of Mr. Mustafa Abdallah, who is a senior researcher and acting head of program Peace and Support Operations at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Sir, please, I would like to know, how do you assess the effectiveness of parliamentary engagement in peace and security issues today based on your research and policy analysis?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you all previous speakers, my professors and doctors. Dr. Yakohima, I was also at LESIAD once.
Oh.
So I see Dr. Yakohima as one of my lecturers. Yes. So, thank you very much for coming. Yes, back to the question. I think, as the previous speakers rightly indicated, parliament or legislative arm of government is a critical arm of government that play a role in terms of our governance structures within the West ECOWAS sub-region generally. But if you look at in terms of our peace and security generally, but also in terms of our governance structures generally, they have contributed significantly in terms of laws, in terms of oversight. If you look at the ECOWAS Parliament, I'm sure they have also contributed significantly in terms of contributing to ECOWAS developing certain norms, which is regional norms, to be able to help in our governance structures. But again, there are so many instances in which you also begin to question the effectiveness of their oversight, especially when it comes to governance. There have been instances where the legislative arms of government who have, after engaging in law making, but one of the key thing is also to ensure oversight in terms of our governance structures. But there have been instances where the legislative arm of government has been accused of engaging in corruption. Again, in instances where their oversight appear very, very, very weak. I have had the opportunity to participate in a workshop in Ghana with the current speaker, where they asked Kofi Annan to actually help them to train their staff. One of the things that we discussed is that, we have this parliamentary oversight, where we call it Public Accounts Committee, where members of the executive who have who are heading key institutions will have to come and account for the state. In 2021, for example, or in 2020, for example, the level of corruption in Ghana, it was amount to 12 billion cedis. And when people come before the parliament, which is an oversight body, we expect that over a period of time, we should see a decrease in corrupt activities. But if in 2020, the level of corruption in Ghana was from the Auditor General was around 12 million, in 2021, it moved to 17 million. I begin to ask myself whether the oversight structure that we have in terms of our governance is actually effective. If we have year on people coming to account, but we don't see changes, then it means there are some weaknesses in our oversight structures, and we need to do something about it to be able to ensure that governance is actually linked to peace and security generally. ECOWAS, as you indicated, is an organization that has been engaging, that have veered away from this integration agenda to issues of peace and security. But issues of peace and security has also connection with issues of governance. And so Parliament has a significant role in terms of ensuring that our governance is actually so effective to ensure that there is peace and stability within the region. But as I indicated, there are some weaknesses, and there have been instances where citizens have attempted to actually attack governance. We have seen it in Burkina Faso in 2014, where the citizens were disgruntled with the governance architectures, precisely the attack parliament. We have also seen it recently in Kenya, where the youth were angry, actually attacked parliament and all those things. That actually tells us that whilst we still respect our legislative structures as a key governance structure that contributes to our development, there are weaknesses that we need to look at and be able to address, and so that those weaknesses between the executive arm of government and how the legislative arm of government should ensure oversight should be strengthened. And that is how we can ensure proper governance, and that is how we can also enjoy peace and stability within the ECOWAS sub-region. Let me stop here, and then when I'm invited, I'll come back again. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so very much. I'm actually now trying to recall a question we were asked in our last webinar. Maybe let me roughly put this. One of the participants indicated that the MPs in the ECOWAS parliaments are not elected. So how can they be held accountable by the ECOWAS citizens for their actions? And how can they even represent them? First of all, how did they even get their legitimacy? So these are some of the questions that we are still trying to find answers to. How can we hold our MPs accountable when they go and represent us at the ECOWAS? And where do they even get their legitimacy from? I'm back to you, sir.
Mustafa, me,
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. So yes, yeah, it's difficult for them in terms, like you rightly indicated. Once their representation in the ECOWAS Parliament is an appointment, or it's not an elective position, like in the case of Ghana, Nigeria, or any of the countries within the ECOWAS sub-region, it's difficult for them. But again, when you are appointed, somebody who has become a parliamentarian, and you all of being appointed to represent the region, we need to see certain changes in terms of our governance within the sub-region. Even though, yes, you may not have been elected, and so the issues of legitimacy or accountability is something that we need to look at. But again, once you have been appointed in any position, if you are appointed, for example, as a minister of state, you are appointed by the president of a particular country, but you have the responsibility to deliver. And so, even though that lacuna is there in terms of them not being elected but being appointed to represent, we actually need to see certain changes in terms of effort of those parliamentary networks to be able to contribute to our governance structures within the sub-region. But I think I will agree with you that there is a gap there, and therefore we need to also look at what can we do to revise or to make certain things a bit binding to ensure that there is some sort of legitimacy so that we can hold them accountable for those positions that they hold. But otherwise, as it stands now, there are challenges, and it will continue to be a union where people will meet and proffer solution, but because it's not binding on ECOWAS. And so the lack of bindingness of their decisions could be a major gap in terms of our effort to be able to see the ECOWAS Parliament contributing to our governance and development. But I think generally there are things that they do to help in terms of coming together as a regional body to ensure that certain decisions are made that reflect in our governance and structures, the integration of our national laws, and then those legislative oversights which are integrated into ECOWAS's governance structure helps to some extent. But I think the gap is there, and we need to look at it in terms of ensuring that they are more effective, their decisions are more binding, and that could then, at the end of the day, contribute to our governance effort within the sub-region. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Let me just finish with you before I move on to the next person. So I'd like to finally ask you, what lessons can be drawn from our past interventions at ECOWAS as a whole in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Gambia in respect to promoting stability and good governance? What lessons have we learned from all these experiences?
Yes, a number of good lessons have been learned, especially with ECOWAS's intervention in Liberia, Sierra Leone, as well as Gambia. And that one of the lessons is that African or ECOWAS becomes very assertive even when the bigger regional bodies are dragging their feet, are showing lack of willingness to intervene at the point when our civilians are dying. Women, children are dying in conflict situations. You know, before the ECOWAS as a regional body intervenes in any situation, it needs to get authorization from the UN Security Council. But at the time that ECOWAS intervened in Liberia, there wasn't any authorization. The authorization came afterwards. That means ECOWAS was very assertive. It will not sit down for its region to get disintegrated with the conflict in Liberia, the potential spillover, which actually happened, where we had refugees in other countries, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana, and all those things. So ECOWAS was very assertive, and that assertiveness actually played a role in stabilizing the situation before subsequently the United Nations and other bodies also came in to support. And so it's one of the things that we can learn. In Sierra Leone as well, ECOWAS did very well in terms of intervening and subsequently. So you see the rehearting of a mission. So ECOWAS will go in and then it will be rehearted into, for example, UNAMSIL, which is the UN mission in Sierra Leone. As again in Liberia, it also happened, as well as in Gambia, where ECOWAS also, when Yahya Jammeh was refusing to back down, we saw the assertiveness of ECOWAS. But again, somebody will also ask whether if the situation in Gambia had been in another country, a bigger country like Nigeria or Ghana, whether ECOWAS would have been able to become assertive in terms of intervening in that situation. And so that is also things that we need to look at. And so even though ECOWAS has been intervening in some of the places, but there are areas that ECOWAS has also been inconsistent in terms of when people are engaged in attempt to change their constitutions. There are instances they will criticize, they will intervene, but there are other instances that also you see ECOWAS hesitating, not intervening as citizens expected. And that is why in some instances you see a lot of criticism against ECOWAS for lack of consistency in its sanctions and its interventions. And so you see in recent time where in Niger, where ECOWAS attempted to intervene, but they said, no, bluff of what you are saying, because we have seen in areas where we thought you are not so consistent, where in some instances you criticize, you attempt to intervene, but in other areas, we see some form of lethargy. And so overall, what I would say to conclude is that, yes, ECOWAS has been very assertive in intervening, but we need to see consistency in terms of intervention, in terms of its mediation effort, in terms of criticisms of an attempted constitutional change of term limits within the sub-region. That adds credibility to ECOWAS, that adds legitimacy to ECOWAS, and that citizens and country member states will all see ECOWAS as a credible institutions. And then we see the regional body that they will all be part of it. We have seen recent disintegration, the Alliance of Sahel State. And if you ask them, I'm currently in Mali, and if you ask them about the possible coming back to ECOWAS, some people, you don't see that willingness there because they feel that, oh, ECOWAS is a stooge of other European countries. And so why do you want to be part of such an organization? And so all in all, ECOWAS has been very good, has intervened, but there are certain challenges that we need to look at to make it a better and better institutions as it celebrates its 50th anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. I think their inconsistency will be due to he who pays the piper calls the tune. But yes, there's a lot of things that ECOWAS can actually learn. I think some of the great interventions they have done, as you have mentioned, is some of the things that they should continue doing as a body to promote regional integration. Thank you so very much, Mr. Mustafa. We'll now move on to the next person who would give us the East African perspective. So, Mr. Edward Kakumu, I'd like to know what ECOWAS can learn from the East African economic community in managing regional integration amid democratic reversals.
Cynthia, thank you very much for your question. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please. But if you can speak just a little bit higher for us.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Allow me to mop up because while listening to the other speakers, I've come up with different insights that I want also to share along the lines of ECOWAS. And later on, I will try and bring in the East African perspective, or probably during the submissions, I can also, touch on East Africans, what is happening in East Africa. According to index done by the African Regional Integration, that is a platform under the UN Economic Commission of Africa, UNECA. The index was done in 2021, 2022, which is about 3 years ago. I see ECOWAS, or it speaks to the fact that ECOWAS is doing very well in terms of freedom of movement of people, in terms of micro integration of systems, but it's doing very poorly in terms of value chains and trade and infrastructure. On the converse, Kenya is doing very well in terms of economic integration, macroeconomic integration. It's also doing very well in terms of freedom of movement of people and infrastructure, as well as value chains and trade. So on average, we are on the same level. I'll be happy to share a presentation with you where people can get some of these findings and go through them in a bit of a deeper way. But in just mopping up with this background in mind, some of the speakers have spoken around trust. And I look at, trust amongst, the presidents of ECOWAS. And I can see there that there are 15 presidents of ECOWAS, around 15 with the Sahel issue. I would say around 15. And you see trust, countries are very bureaucratic. And with 15 heads of state, there is a lot of bureaucracy there. So, and that in itself is actually presents a challenge. I also see a country that has, countries or a region that has 3 landlocked countries, 8 French Francophone countries, 5 English countries, and 2 Portuguese countries. All of this presents a situation where there are language barriers, and the speaking amongst the people is in itself brings a challenge. Building trust among these people needs some sort of unity. And I think one of the speakers spoke to this, where you need to develop commonalities along the lines of the people. What language can West Africa accommodate and take to speak in one voice? There was an intervention around building strong institutions, and there are too many strong men in the West African region. Military kind of interventions are regular. And for me, I see the idea about building very strong institutions along the lines of political parties, along the lines of media, along the lines of civil society, and along the lines of parliament. Strong institutions will help the cause for West Africa within the different countries. And those civil societies, those media, those political parties can cut across, the different regions and reach out to the different people, and you can work together, develop on a common voice. For me, the experience in Kenya is that we have, the experience in East Africa is that we have our community, the East African community, has taken the economic way that also a speaker spoke to. The economic way, I feel, is the best, most viable option, where instead of raising sanctions against each other, we endeavor to work together, trade together, do business together, creating zero tariffs along, the region, creating common markets, creating common union, custom unions where people from Benin can really flow without presenting their papers to Liberia or to Nigeria. People from, which is the farthest point, closer to Mauritania, can really get to Ghana very easily, can do trade without, raising different taxation measures. That is the way to go. The issues about politics for the region and for the regional body, I think, are weighty issues, and trying to sort them as a regional body might be very tricky. For me, the best idea would be to accommodate other regional bodies to come and intervene when political issues come. That for me would be a better direction, where you access or get acquaintances from former presidents of the different regions, former or current presidents, such as the South African president who came to sort out our DRC problem within the East African community. Those are the examples when it comes to politics and enabling political stability that can actually work. Trying to sort them in-house, for me, is a tall order. It will create tensions, just as the sanctions have, and breakaways where we can see an alliance now forming Sahel states. The question on accountability of regional parliaments for me is critical. And in Africa, in East Africa, how we deal with it is that the people don't directly elect representatives to the region, but parliaments do, and they use political parties, political party lines to try and sort out this issue. When the representatives go to the regional body, what they are normally asked to look at is more of regional interest other than country interest. So when you send your representatives there, the question should be, what have you done to ensure that the region has moved forward? We see most of the, in East Africa, most of our countries are required to present a particular, they have a certain amount of money that they are supposed to give to the regional body every year. Ours is about $7.3 million per country that they are supposed to always contribute to the community. I'm not sure whether there are similar initiatives in West Africa, but and we can see even some of our member states are not providing constantly, living up to the expectations of that particular aspect, where they're supposed to give that 7.3 each and every year. But for me, trying to live up to those expectations that align to the various priorities, like in East Africa, we have the 7 different priorities between 2022 and 2026. Those priorities are the full implementation of single customs, where within the community, we can freely walk and trade without request for too much documentation. We can freely access the common market without changing our money. I can go to Tanzania and change, and it doesn't require me to change money. I can just trade with my Kenya shillings. But moving forward, there's also an idea of onboarding the attainment of a single currency for East Africa. There is the need.
I think our time is fast spent. So we'd like to pause here for now. You can share that report with us. We'll share it with everyone who is present at this meeting. But I think questions from participants would also come in, and which would also help you to expatiate more on your points. So I think we can now take the questions from our participants. So please, if you have any question, you can raise your hand, and then our IT would unmute you. You can also drop your questions in the chat box. And I already have a question, so I'll be reading that. Anyone among the panel can take this question. So the question is, what lessons can we draw from the recent coups in West Africa regarding the relationship between leadership legitimacy and public trust? What lessons can we draw from the recent coups in West Africa regarding the relationship between leadership, legitimacy, and public trust? Pardon my voice. So I'll be directing this question to Mr. Mustafa Abdallah. Sir, please,
Okay.
with us, kindly take the question.
Thank you very much. Lessons that you can draw from the coup regarding relationship, leadership, legitimacy, and trust. It's a very, very important question. As I rightly indicated, I'm currently in Mali, and we are in Mali to try to see how the Accra Initiative, which you know is a mechanism that about 7 members are part to be able to address violent extremism within the sub-region. And one of the things that we are experiencing from our interaction is that there is a deepening lack of trust, even among the members of the Accra Initiative on the one hand, and again, deepening lack of trust between members of the Alliance of Sahel States and the bigger ECOWAS. And that is the reason why at the end of the day, they broke away from this particular organization. Again, we have also seen, yes, in relation to the coup d'etat, it's one of the things that we have been experiencing for the past years within the West African sub-region. We have seen attempted coup d'etats, we have seen constitutional changes in government, and we have seen actual coup d'etats in a number of countries precisely because of lack of trust, again, in the multilateral organizations. And that is what we gather from the field, that countries and citizens are increasingly seeing lack of trust between the multilateral organizations and sometimes the bilateral organizations on the one hand, and also between citizens and their governments on the other hand. And that is why we are seeing most of the coup d'etats in recent times. As I indicated, in 2014, there was an attack on Burkina Faso Parliament. We have seen attack on the Kenyan Parliament. But within these Sahelian states, most of them are engaging in coup d'etat because they feel that the multilateral organizations, including ECOWAS, including France and East Balkan, including the UN, which was here with MINUSMA, have failed to actually deliver on their goods. That is in terms of fighting violent extremism and terrorism within this particular region. And that is why they think we need to take our destiny into our own hands. We thought our sovereignty has been in the hands of other bilateral and multilateral organizations, and we are not seeing changes in our development and our fight against violent extremism. And that is why we have seen increasing coup d'etat, where the states, especially within the Sahel, are increasingly wanting to become assertive to be able to deal with the violent extremism that we are witnessing. But as to whether the assertiveness can also be able to deal with it is also another matter, because it also requires resources, it requires logistics, it requires a number of things. But that is the level of frustration that we are seeing between these countries and the multilateral organizations. But we are also seeing certain lack of trust between the citizens and their governments. And so the citizens are also increasingly seeing that their governments are not delivering in one case. And so the increasing coup d'etat that we are witnessing, the promise by the leaders is that we are going to change the face of governance. And so the citizens appear a bit relaxed for now. We are seeing new alliances with other countries. If you come to the Sahel countries, the alliances is now with Russia, with Iran, with Turkey, with Saudi Arabia, with Libya and Morocco. These are the alliances that we are seeing. And when you go to Niger, they are actually reconfiguring their alliances. In Mali, they are doing similar thing, and because of lack of trust for the traditional partners. But the citizens are okay, tell me for now that, we may go through something difficulties, but we think that if our new leaders are able to address the concerns that we are facing, then it means we will then see them as legitimate. But only time will also tell whether they will be able to deliver on their goods. We have seen in the past where military have intervened, but again, we don't see changes when they have taken over. Recently, there was a CDD survey that suggested that increasingly citizens are becoming interested in seeing the military leaders taking over because of level of frustrations. Yes, while that actually resonates with the people on the ground, we want to see whether the new leaders can also bring about certain changes in terms of governance, in terms of development, in terms of addressing the welfare of the citizens. If that is done within the shortest possible time, then we can see that the new alliances will be consolidated, and that will be the new governance architecture that we'll have. I'm, for example, writing a paper about reconfiguration of the architecture in our governance within the Sahel. But as to whether that will also actually bring about certain stability and development, only time will tell. And so let's give them the benefit of the doubt now. But as we interact with people within the region, we don't see these states, the Alliance of Sahel State, wanting to come back to ECOWAS. That is the sense we get at, and that they think that the traditional partners have failed them, multilateral and bilateral, and therefore they need to take the ownership of their governance into their own hands. In some cases, they feel that their resources are being looted, and they are not seeing the benefit of those resources. As we speak now, before then, when you go to Niger, about 85% of their uranium goes to France. When Operation Barkhane was in Mali, the feeling is that they have controlled all the areas where the resources are. The Malian army, which is known as FAMA, is not even able to actually access certain places. The belief is that these partners are there controlling their resources, and they think that if they take the ownership, the sovereignty of their country into their own hand, they will see certain changes. But as I indicated, only time will tell. But I think the issues of trust is a major thing that we need to rebuild to ensure that within the ECOWAS region, we will be able to see certain changes and development within the sub-region. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I think this other question is also to you again. It's also boils on trust. How can citizens trust in the electoral process?
Thank you very much. Citizens can only trust the electoral processes when the level of political interference in the processes are reduced. You know, electoral commissions are supposed to be independent. If you see my professors mentioning the protocol on democracy and good governance, it is a protocol that ensures that the electoral commissions in all countries of ECOWAS should be independent. But there are certain internal structures that actually do not make the electoral commissioners independent. In the case of Cote d'Ivoire, for example, after having the independent electoral commission, we also have a constitutional council that would affirm whatever decision that the independent commission makes. We have seen in a number of countries where, yes, the independent electoral commissioner is appointed by the government. So if somebody is appointed by the government, could you also even say that they are completely independent? And so there is some political interference in the way electoral commissioners operate. And so in Ghana, or you know, the brouhaha towards the 2020 election and 2012 elections, when parties are in opposition, they don't actually trust the electoral commission, and they think the political actors are influencing in the electoral commission. And so if that perception, we can reduce that perception by allowing the electoral commissioner to operate seemingly independent from the political control, then it means citizens will begin to trust. And when citizens trust the electoral commissioner, we also believe that they can also deliver elections that will reduce the potential of violence. But in instances where we do not trust, but we do not trust because of lack of openness, sometimes in the way they do things. We have seen it in Ghana, we have seen it in Nigeria, we have seen it in other places. And so citizens will only trust when those the influences are reduced to the barest minimum. Maybe perhaps we also need to change the way we appoint them, where it is not only the president in power that appoints, but there may be certain other processes that will also reduce the influence of the electoral, the interference within the processes of the electoral commissioner. And I think that is when the citizens can gain trust. And when we gain trust, there is a lot of confidence. They can deliver. They will not twist election results in favor of any other party. And when we get that, I think we'll be able to move forward with our elections with limited difficulties and challenges as we have been witnesses in recent time.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the last question to you would be, how do we keep spillovers from usually the Francophone region to the Anglophone region?
Please, the question again.
How do we keep spillovers? So from the Sahel region towards sub-Saharan. So mostly from Francophone countries towards Anglophone countries. How do we keep those spillovers? This is
I think, yes, I think a number of things. And the Accra initiative that I mentioned is one of the mechanisms that was developed to actually be able to prevent those spillovers. And so you notice that the Accra initiative, since it was established in 2017, they have undertaken a number of operations. And the principles underpinning the Accra initiative is about intelligence sharing, it's about training, capacity building, it's about joint operations. And in all these things that underpin the operations, they have undertaken some. You see that they have undertaken a number of operations which they codename Koldangu, between the borders of Ghana and Togo, borders of Ghana and Burkina Faso, and in which all the participating countries have been part. And in some of these instances, their operations have become a deterrent kind of deployment, in which when the citizens, potentially criminal citizens or potential terrorists are operating in that area, when they see such operations, it actually deters them and it creates some semblance of temporary stability. But the challenge with the operation is that the deployment is a bit temporary. So when they function within, say, 1 week, they go into hibernation, unless maybe for some time when they feel that there are some threats. So actually the deterrent deployment, if it's sustained, can continue to actually create some semblance of peace and stability within those border communities. But again, as I indicated, there's also mistrust between the countries. For example,
Thank you. I think we'll take the last question.
Okay.
From Yao Karim. Karim raised his hand. So Marilyn, if you can unmute him so that he gives, and Karim, please make it very brief. He speaks French, so please let's all listen in on the English version. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you. You can speak the English as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to thank all the speakers. I'm going to ask some question, but in French. I hope it will be translated very, very well for all of us.
Okay.
Alors, un des participants, un des communicateurs a parlé de la nécessité de faire des réformes au niveau de la CEDEAO. Et je pense que 50 ans après, cela s'impose. Il faut qu'au niveau de la société civile, on puisse s'impliquer davantage pour qu'il puisse avoir des réformes pour que la CEDEAO puisse répondre pleinement aux besoins de nos populations en Afrique de l'Ouest. Parce que si cela n'est pas fait, moi je crains. Et en tant qu'analyste et acteur de la société civile, c'est ce qui risque d'arriver. La CEDEAO va se désintégrer. C'est-à-dire que les populations ne vont pas se sentir concernées. Certains pays en seront déçus et ils vont sortir. Nous avons déjà le cas des pays, des États du Sahel, mais aussi nous avons certains pays comme le Sénégal, où j'ai été plusieurs fois, les gens ne sont pas véritablement satisfaits de l'action ou du rôle de la CEDEAO. Donc, ça, c'est un premier point par rapport relativement vraiment aux réformes pour que la CEDEAO puisse vraiment répondre aux besoins. Maintenant, l'autre question que je me pose, je ne sais pas, quel est le rôle et à quoi nous sert le Parlement de la CEDEAO? Parce que la dernière fois, nous avons eu un webinaire, on en a parlé, et là, je crois que Cynthia l'a relevé ou un intervenant l'a relevé, les parlementaires ne sont pas élus par les citoyens de l'espace. Alors, s'ils ne sont pas élus, qu'est-ce qu'ils peuvent faire? Quel travail ils peuvent faire? Qu'est-ce que cela peut apporter? Et puis, l'autre point, je pense que peut-être que ça devrait être, comme un des intervenants l'a dit, il faut que, par exemple, les Ghanéens, les Nigérians, les Ivoiriens se sentent concernés, par exemple, par ce qui se passe en Guinée-Bissau, se sentent concernés par ce qui se passe au Mali. Et quand vous prenez les pays de la CEDEAO, vous constatez que les pays anglophones, en matière de démocratie, en matière de gouvernance, sont en avance sur les pays francophones. Et ces pays-là, je crois qu'ils devraient pousser nos pays francophones vers le haut. Malheureusement, moi, ces dernières années, je n'ai pas vraiment senti le leadership à ce niveau-là. J'avais nourri beaucoup d'espoir sur l'ancien président nigérien, le général Mohamed Bouhari, mais il a parlé, que ce soit à la tribune de l'ONU, mais il n'y a pas eu d'action pour tirer ces pays-là vers le haut. Aujourd'hui, nous avons des pays potentiellement où on peut avoir des crises. Aujourd'hui, par exemple, dans mon pays, la Côte d'Ivoire, en octobre, nous aurons des élections. Il est probable que le président sortant, qui a déjà fait un 3e mandat anticonstitutionnel, puisse être candidat pour un 4e mandat anticonstitutionnel, et tous les grands leaders de l'opposition sont exclus de la présidentielle. Aujourd'hui, la CEDEAO ne dit rien.
OK, merci beaucoup.
La CEDEAO ne dit rien. Il n'y a rien du tout. Mais quand il va y avoir des crises, des choses, ces maintenant vont s'élever. Or, il faut... il y a la situation en Guinée-Bissau aussi qui inquiète. Le président sortant voudrait faire un 3e mandat. Donc, voilà des éléments. Je pense qu'il faut qu'on puisse voir au niveau de la société civile vraiment comment mener vraiment un large plaidoyer pour qu'il puisse y avoir des réformes en profondeur de notre institution. C'est-à-dire que si on nous prend garde, elle va se désintégrer et la violence, le recul démocratique, l'extrémisme violent, ils vont sévir dans notre zone et cela ne va pas épargner aucun pays. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Je pense qu'on a déjà répondu à la 2e question et les autres sont commentaires, je pense. Donc, on va continuer. Monsieur, Mr. Mustafa, would you want to take the question or any other panelist? And first of all, did you get the questions?
No, if you can summarize it a bit for me, please.
So the first question would be, how we are talking about reforms, how can we have a reform that responds to the needs of the ECOWAS citizens? How can ECOWAS be reformed to respond to the needs of the citizens? And I think the second one was in relation to the role of the ECOWAS Parliament, the legitimacy of the ECOWAS Parliament. And I think we spoke briefly on that, or I even asked a question on that. So I don't think we have to belabor that point. And I think the last one is generally, how can we all come together, advocate as citizens, as CSOs for concrete reforms in ECOWAS?
Yeah. Maybe I'll take the first one, and others can also share their perspective on others. How do you reform ECOWAS to reflect the aspirations of citizens? I think, ECOWAS, even as indicated in one of his documents, that is ECOWAS Conflict Prevention Framework, that ECOWAS has now is moving away from ECOWAS of state to ECOWAS of people. And so in around 2010, 2011, when I joined Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center, we were doing a study about some of those things. How do citizens know the framework of ECOWAS? And for example, the 2008 Conflict Prevention Framework, that has a lot of, about 14 components. And one of the components is about youth empowerment, is about mediation, about governance, resource governance, human peace and security, and all those things. We were trying to understand how citizens actually understand the framework of ECOWAS. So we went to a number of countries, Liberia, Benin, to try to understand. For example, we took the youth empowerment component. And then we went to Liberia and we were interviewing a deputy youth minister. He doesn't even know that there is something called ECOWAS Conflict Prevention Framework, let alone knowing whether there is a youth component. And for him, somebody who is developing policies to implement youth initiatives, how does he incorporate ideas from the ECOWAS framework into his youth policies? And so we noticed that there is lack of awareness about the ECOWAS structures, mechanisms, and therefore what we can do now to be able to ensure that citizens actually know much about the ECOWAS is to begin to see it as maybe some subjects in schools, for them people to know about international organizations. When we say what is UN, what is the role of the UN, what is AU, what is the basic things about ECOWAS, and that is when citizens will begin to appreciate that we have other supranational bodies that could contribute to our peace, to our development. They will begin to appreciate what they do. They will begin to see their successes, their weaknesses, and they can also contribute to developing that structure. And when they are part of that structure, the ownership is there, they contribute to it, and that we can see certain changes between the citizens and then the bigger structure, ECOWAS. But otherwise, it will continue to be an ECOWAS of people, but only on paper. But on the ground, a lot of people still don't understand ECOWAS mechanisms and what it seeks to do to help our peace and governance effort within the region.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll bring this to a close over here. I'd like to thank all our panelists on behalf of Parliamentary Network Africa and our partners at Wademos, to each and every one of you for your participation. I know some of you have busy schedules, but you took time off those busy schedules to be here with us. We thank you very much for your participation and for your contribution towards this beautiful conversation. I'd like to indicate that we have the post-evaluation link in the chat box. Kindly share your views with us. You can click on it even before we depart so that you don't lose the link, and then you can fill it. It just takes a minute. It will just take you a minute to do so. Maybe if we have final comments from our speakers, I will take that. So if Dr. Yakoheni has any final comments for us, if Mr. Kakumu has any final comments for us, please share that. And then finally, after they are done, we would all turn on our videos and take a group photograph to commemorate today's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would like to ride on what my brother Mustafa from Kofi Annan said. Only people who study the area or who work in the area know much about ECOWAS. And so if we are going to start any conversation about reforms, then, and we want citizen participation, then there is a need for there to be knowledge overflow, if I would say. That will then help citizens to know the policy lapses and the legal lapses. So we are in a generation where young people are technologically smart. So one of the ways in which we can have more people between the ages of 60 to 40 or 45 will be for ECOWAS to leverage on digital platforms for policy participation. And this can easily be done so that more conversations can be held. ECOWAS itself can be having conversations using its social media platforms. Its handles should be active, where they post information, everything that is happening. Then they can just have a simple survey and ask people what it is that they think should be done or can be done. Because ECOWAS needs reforms for more citizen ownership. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kakumo, do you have any final comments for us?
Yes, I do, Cynthia. Thank you very much for the opportunity again. And I believe I want to finish with 3 points. The first point is that for 50 years, ECOWAS has been a unit. It has been able to survive. It has been able to bring us the achievements so far. But now you're here, and you're celebrating your 50th birthday. What I can tell you is this. It is time now to let me bring in the East African experience. We have only survived for 25 years. Before that, we broke away twice. Yeah. And from 2000 2002, the year 2000, what has been able to make us survive is a common economic goal. So that is what I will ask citizens and institutions within ECOWAS to focus on. ECOWAS itself, as the name reads, economic cooperation of West African states. I believe it is imperative that that should be the key focus. Number two, ECOWAS has a population of 0.5 billion, basically 500 million people, over 500 million people. How we can engage them as a population, the best way is only through trade, where the different members of the different countries are interacting through trade. So we need to provide an avenue that is good enough for them to trade. And that can only come when you have a common market, common and a custom union that is similar in these countries. So policy reforms according to those lines, common market, customs union, it is the same across the 15 countries will help. This is basically saying that if you buy something in each and every country, it is just about the same price. No price differences. Common market. Custom union is all about freedom of movement of goods and services. Lastly, leverage on infrastructure. To be able to freely trade and move within these countries, you should have good infrastructure, where you have good roads that interconnect within the countries, good rail system that interconnects within the countries, good electricity, good pipelines for oil, good pipelines for water, and you're moving in the right direction. Policies around that will enable you getting better impact than focusing on mostly the political side of things. That is what the East African community has focused on. And that's why we are getting a bit more impact in our regional integration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Tumenta, please, you have the floor for your final comments on this.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think that the West Africa, as we stand as the diaspora, stand at a pivotal moment in its history, and in which case, as has been raised by the previous speakers in this conversation, the future now will be defined by how do we deal with the military coup, the democratic backsliding, and we have seen many of the participants raising issues about the upcoming challenges with Ivory Coast and the rest, the terrorism issues, and deep public distrust. So all of this, Madam Chair, means a lot for us. People are demanding urgent reform and collective action. We have been able to bring out the idea that we have to support each other. We have to integrate across. We have to make sure that that the diaspora plays a vital role. Madam Chair, ECOWAS GDP, which GDP could grow by $2 trillion by the year 2043, if it takes governance gaps serious, if it tackles these governance gaps, if it harnessed its youth, to make it a demographic dividend for all its citizens, and if it includes these dynamic diasporas that are there. As the Commissioner for African Diasporas Development Agency, the African Diaspora 6th region has signaled to the ECOWAS that we are willing to collaborate, to support them, to bring our competencies at all angles. We must make it a people-driven union. It was an economic union that was designed, but we have to make sure that we make it people's-driven. Madam Chair, last but not the least, we have to create opportunities for young people in these countries. We have to create information system to make sure that young people who are in Accra could link with those who are in Delta State in Nigeria, which is too closed. And what about Cabo Verde, which is there? This country is so beautiful, and just 1 hour flight from, 2 hours flight from, you get to Senegal, and the opportunities that are in these countries, young people do not know. It has been made For example, the data center of Europe, many diasporas are looking to invest in, but the ECOWAS has to open and create mechanism for diasporas to come in. That is why we hope to work with the parliamentary president work to see how we could get these parliamentarians to get information, not just to citizens in that region, but to get it to citizens in the diasporas to attract. They have to make sure that they are economic ambassadors of that sub-region to attract the best investors to come in. Madam Chair, the last thing is that we have to make this union part of an African Union agenda. We can't make it as if it's just a regional isolated agenda. We have Agenda 2063 of the African Union. If we are the African we want, has to be taken into the houses of each and every one of each and every citizen of this sub-region. It is not just about ECOWAS. It is about building a united and integrated Africa where all Africans feel safe and included in building. So as we move for the next 50 years, citizens should drive these organizations as being the owners, and citizens should understand that this organization is just a mosaic, it's just a puzzle of the united and integrated African vision. And with the African continental free trade, we can do it, and we can reverse the challenges we are having with our governance system. So building trust is about creating opportunities and allowing people, market, civil society, and media to judge if we are doing the right thing. So we are looking forward as the diaspora. We want spaces to be open in the sub-region, so diasporas, the historical diasporas, as Donald Trump, Madam Chair, is making sure that some of us are feeling very bad. We do not even want to feel about the challenge of the US. We want to feel that the African continent is calling us. It is their fight. But where do we go? Do we go to Ghana? Do we go to Sao Tome and do we go to Burkina Faso? Do we go to Cape Verde? So where do we go? Is ECOWAS having a program to say, let them fight. African people, bring the million, bring the resources, connect with the children so we can build it. So I think that the discussion we should be having is how do we as citizens, not just in the ECOWAS, but in the diasporas and other regions, build and work towards a united and integrated Africa, not disintegrating sub-regions to build nation state, but building a consolidated African Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Mr. Abdallah, just a word or a sentence.
Thank you very much. So
that everyone can take away from this meeting.
Yeah. I think that just to say that ECOWAS has been a very instrumental organization, but there is a more to do in terms of our governance. And so ECOWAS should redirect its mind in terms of ensuring proper governance structures and processes, and that will transform the lives of the citizens of ECOWAS member states. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And so we'll bring this to a close, but before we do, please, let's all put on our video so that we can take a group photograph. IT, please, I hope you're coordinating this. Okay, are we done? On the count of 2, 1, and 2. I think we are done here. Thank you all for coming. We thank you from PN Africa, from Wademos, from our esteemed speakers. To all of you, thank you for coming and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Professor. My pleasure.
Thank you.